Start stream. Give it a moment here. Yeah, I think it works, and I think, yeah, yay. All right, so Einar, thank you for coming back. John, good to see you. There's like 3 people here. I'm just going to quickly announce things on the Twitters that we're live. For if people want to come in and see, copy the link, and then announce onto our Twitter. So let's tweet. Meetup is live. Join here to discuss event modeling. Okay, event modeling and organizing event model swim lanes. Okay, so Control V, there we go. Some hashtags. Event sourcing. CQRS. DVD design, in case someone from that wants to look at it. Okay, cool. So good to go. So yeah, I was just while we were setting up here, I was talking about early part of the week, finding some exercises and application of event modeling in one client that's moving to an event-driven architecture, and they needed to go from their legacy code into proper brand new shiny microservices and event-driven architectures, all those things. So they decided to have us come in and do an event modeling workshop over the span of a couple of days. So I think it went really well. There's always someone that wants a different format when you're doing event modeling. So this time I went with theory first. So talk about why events are more natural for human beings and all of this, which most people I think found helpful to set the stage for what they're going to be doing. But of course there's the other half that really want to get their hands dirty and start event modeling right away. So you can never satisfy everybody. So probably for the next one I'll react and do it the other way. We'll just get our hands dirty first and then give some, a small explanation later on in the middle of the first day about why we're doing it. And I'll have the other half of the people complain that they wish they had the theory first so they knew what they were doing. So can't please everyone every time. And so I've just given up. I'll just keep switching back and forth to the various formats and see what sticks. But you can find out what works by obviously joining the meetup, tuning in on YouTube. I try to review the every day in the life of people that do event sourcing and CQRS and event modeling on a daily basis as a way to run their business. So hopefully you get some insights and you can adopt those practices yourself. So we do have a Zoom link. If you go to Meetup and search for event modeling in the Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada area, event modeling in that area should pop up. It's called the Event-Driven Meetup, which has been running for a number of years now. I think I started it as a ZRMQ group a long time ago, still maybe 2013, 2014. Then it transformed into the Ansible Meetup while I was at Active State, and then transformed to the Domain-Driven Design, CQRS, ES Meetup, which is quite a mouthful. People didn't know what it was. And then Dave Remy, the CEO of Event Store, suggested or started running event-driven meetup, and that was a really good way to put it, and that stuck. So he kind of used our format as the basis of how he was going to run his. And he started one in Boston, he started one in Seattle, but I think everyone got a little bit too busy. So those meetups still happen, but they're kind of like once every 2 months now or something like that. I haven't checked. I mean, I'm not. They're all also in person most of the time, and of course with COVID, that's not possible. So anyway, that's kind of a bit of a update as to how things are going in my end of the world. So let's try and share this screen of well, I guess we'll go to our traditional one. I'll just draw out what they did because I can't just show their event model. It's all intellectual property. But what struck me really about this group was how well they organized everything. They were probably the most organized group of folks that made the cleanest event model I've seen, that didn't really break any of the recommendations, such as no branching, keeping swim lanes clear of the read models and commands, used real snapshots of or screen captures of the screen. So it was incredibly easy to figure out, how many systems they had working together, what each system did at what point in time. I learned about their company just by reading that event model in the shortest amount of time that I've ever been able to get familiar with what a company does. And so that was probably one of the best ones. So I'm going to draw out kind of like what they did, so we all learn from how to do it properly, and I'll recreate it as best as I can with a different with a different domain. But yeah, anyway, Einar, you are here. So if you have your camera on, I'm not sure if I can actually get Zoom to work. So OBS and Zoom don't play well together. So you can't see me unless you're running the YouTube video on the side.
Oh, right.
Because that's what's stealing my camera. I could, I guess, do something with my phone to get my face onto Zoom, but then unless I turn that microphone on, or you pin my picture on there, then you won't see me anyway. So because it's activated by who's talking.
Right.
Let's see. Zoom guest. Oh yeah, that kind of shows our Zoom thing.
Are you sharing your screen just on YouTube now?
No, I will be. I will be sharing it on Zoom. I just have to get the right screen to get to our actual event modeling Miro board that we use as an example. I was a little bit scattered at these things, and again, late start as usual for me. And where is that? Here we go. All right. Oh, I see some folks are already in there. Great. So I'm gonna try and zoom out here, and I'll share my screen. Pop this over here. Just organize myself so I can see my command center here, where my OBS studio is, where the Zoom meeting is. People are waiting. Admit, and I think Einar, since you're here all the time and Rick is here, I'm gonna make you guys co-hosts. And me co-host.
Morning.
Yes. Hey Rick, how are you?
I'm doing all right.
Awesome. Yeah, so let's dive into kind of how they did this. I'm actually going to probably end up blurring a lot of what they did on their event model and just ask them for permission to, if I can just show the shape of their event model and share it with everyone, either at the next meetup or something online in the coming week. And yeah, that'll be really cool. So time to share the screen here. Screen share. There we go. Okay, so now that I'm sharing here, I gotta share here. I don't have a Zoom guest in this share. That's okay. Does Zoom not work? Yeah, last time Zoom had a problem here. Maybe I'll quickly try and fix it here. Properties for Zoom. Live streaming the Dolphin. Where is it here? It doesn't pop up sometimes on the list of windows. So I'm just not gonna bother. It'll just be me. All right. But I do see you folks on my screen, just FYI. All right, so here's our giant learning canvas that we've been using, which is not responding to me right now. Come on. What are you doing? I think that's all frozen. Stop share. Let's restart this thing. If I can. Okay, there. It stopped. I'll relaunch it. It wasn't responding. Miro's pretty heavy sometimes, so.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Most of the time. Let's just see. That's why I use Rambox for it, because I just, Chrome tabs, they just eat up so much memory, and I'm not happy with it gobbling up so much memory. So Rambox, makes small little containers for Electron or Chrome-based web pages, and that's that. So. All right. And unfortunately today it's going to be a short one, so if you guys want to stay on, I'm going to pass the torch for people that want to keep talking at 11:30 or 12, just before 12, so 10 to 12.
So I found just as a side tip with Miro, I found that every once in a while, if it starts misbehaving, just refresh the entire page.
Yeah, it was just even Rambox wasn't responding, so I couldn't even.
Yeah.
I didn't even know if it was going to transmit the Control R, which is not good. But now I think it's good. If I can just share it now, we should be okay.
I think sometimes what happens is they do a little update, and then it gets confused. Because if you keep the windows open too long, then they're updating the JavaScript in the background, and they may not be perfectly well tested, the mix, right?
Mm-hmm.
So refreshing, if you're about to go into any heavy session or whatever with other people, and you've had the Miro open for quite a while, just expect enough has changed that you should just refresh it before you start your meeting. That's kind of what I've used as a habit.
I did do that. But I think with the Rambox thing, I think it has its own set of issues with it running, so I have to restart it sometimes. It's not the most perfect solution for the problem, but it certainly helps more often than just having an actual tab in Chrome. So let's copy this line. So, oops. Great. Okay.
Makes me have a flashback to the old days where you had a KVM switch and your keyboard, mouse, and everything, and monitor switch, and you just had a couple of actual boxes plugged in the bottom of your desk, and you just switched.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. This is
old-fashioned virtualization, not so virtual.
Yeah. Every week there's always something that changes. So.
But at that
Switch
time,
built into my monitor. It's super helpful.
Oh, really? Nice.
At that time, I was doing graphic stuff, so virtualization didn't really work. You actually had to deal with the hardware. So.
Right. Okay. Zoom is in the way, as usual. Okay. At least I can move its title bar. I have a little editor that I put on the side here for copy pasting things, just to see if things are working.
So while you're setting this up, Adam, if you do, anytime you come across an example like that's a company example or whatever that's not quite shareable, feel free to reach out to myself and maybe one or two others and get permission. Maybe they might give permission for a couple people to look at it, and we could together do the work to turn it into follow the example, but with a different business model or whatever. So because that just takes a lot of work, right? Sometimes sharing that work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty fast at editing photos. So like I took a screenshot of it and then just blurred the words. I'm still I want to check with them anyway because they might be sensitive to the shape of the event model. I mean, they kind of end up being a bit of a fingerprint. It's like, oh, I sort of saw a blurred version of this, and maybe they saw it in an interview and they can put two and two together, and then someone will put a post, like a comment on the video.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then you're like, oh, that's not good.
But sometimes they're okay with these.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal. I'm just
right?
being paranoid at this
don't want
point.
to publish. Sometimes they're sensitive to have it published on the internet, but I have a few people to see it to.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right?
If there's a few people that want to collaborate, then
that's what I'm saying. Because sometimes it's just getting permission to publish it on the internet. That's tough, but getting permission to have people look at it to turn it into a tutorial example, that's a lot easier.
Right.
So if you run into that situation, reach out myself, and I'm sure there's a few others. We can help you do a little bit
appreciate it for sure.
It's just work. It just takes time, and everyone's busy, right? So share the work, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm just gonna make this a little smaller because I think we default to a really large drawing in this particular Miro board, and it's I'm always bumping up the font size to catch up with it. So I think I'm just going to keep it zoomed in here. And for people that want to follow along, the link to this is in the Slack channel for event modeling, the Slack group, which you can find the event modeling on the eventmodeling.org site in the resources section. I should probably update our description in YouTube so people can find it a lot easier. I keep meaning to do that, and I keep forgetting. So that's still a little small. 36. Oh my God.
Putting links like this into YouTube tends to attract everyone in the world. So
so I think I'll leave it at the I'll leave it at
I've shared it in the Miro real-time board channel.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so what I think we'll do is on the YouTube description, I'm going to just leave eventmodeling.org, and the people that deserve to be in here need to read through, the obstacle course of how to get in here to actually help out. But yeah, you're right, Rick. We don't want random folks.
And I'll put the Miro board in the Zoom. Basically, if people can join the Zoom or they can join the Slack channel, then they can get the link. I think that's a reasonable filter.
Yeah. So. Okay, so on to the little subject. It's going to be kind of a lightweight discussion this week. Nice and easy conversation. And I'm going to just edit those. And
Pretty sure it looks frozen to me. I don't know if anybody else is
YouTube? Yeah, it says not receiving enough viewers. That's very odd. I don't know why.
Whatever screen you're sharing is frozen, but I can see you making edits on the real-time board.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's odd that it's doing that. Screen sharing is paused. Oh, I have paused it here.
Haha, that's what I figured.
So how did I... Okay, I'll try to stop the share.
Looks like you found the quick key for pause. Didn't know it.
Yeah, I don't know how that works, but let's try again. But also the YouTube is giving me some information that it's not receiving enough, which is odd. And this thing still, usually it's got a green box around the share, but but this
I see
time
your
it's
mouse moving now.
orange, so I don't know why.
I don't know. I see your mouse moving, so looks like the sharing's working.
Sharing seems to be working, although it
On
says
Skype.
error, YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. As such, viewers will be experiencing buffering. Right. I know what it is. I have a, you know what happens with networking cables. I always snap off the little latch on all my networking cables just by rewiring often enough. And so I think I'm not gonna bother checking it now, but after this I'm gonna just double check that it hasn't popped out. Because I think that might be just a small little networking thing. Actually, you know what? I'm going to check it now because it has caused problems before. Good old wires. 1 second.
I have more than once taped on one of those things. Just plugged it in and taped it on. The little thing snapped off.
No, it seems to be in. That's odd. Not sure why YouTube is giving me these errors. I don't know how YouTube looks for you folks, but if it's jumpy or laggy or bad resolution, no idea why that's happening.
Are you having bandwidth problem with your provider?
No, I got gigabit up and down, so something's up. I got gigabit up and down, and I don't expect that.
Maybe
to
your
be a
graphics card's still playing Minecraft.
No, I remember the graphics card problem. I remember thinking I need a new graphics card, and it was also unseated. Like the card was slightly out. I forget why. I think I might have knocked it. Like the computer's on the ground, so every time I vacuum in here, I knock it, so either the video card or the network cable jumps out.
You should talk to your IT guy to fix that stuff.
Yeah, that's this guy here. I actually want to get a new computer, but I hate wasting computers, so I got to find another reason to make this into some sort of a server. I have another server which I already feel bad enough for not utilizing. It's just gathering dust, but they do consume more power, so I'm like sorry not sorry that it's sitting there. But I think I'm going to do a Plex server, which I used to have running on that old one, and then get a new desktop that will have a more beefy video card. Maybe all this stuff will be good. Hey, it looks like YouTube fixed itself, although I don't know why Zoom still has this yellow border. It usually is a green border for sharing the screen, but whatever.
Doesn't matter. We can see what you're sharing. So
yay. Okay. So anyway, so the one thing that I noticed that they did really, really well was they were not shy about adding a lot of swim lanes into what they were drawing. So it was a legacy system with a bunch of events. And it was quite tidy where they had the events marking where the different subsystems, and let's just, call this, feel free to edit these to be example, different names. So.
Right. You got to pick a theme and we can help you, but
let's do ride sharing. Carpooling. How's that? Hey, Rick, carpooling. We're back in the office soon, right? Because COVID's under control. Carpooling. I think I did that in that workshop too with them as the example thing for showing the theory on the first day.
Karaoke.
Because of the reopening. So that's where so it was really nice because it kind of looked like notes. Actually, it was in fact a lot more sparse where the interactions were. So it's kind of like this. And what was nice was that they were very very good at following the pattern of automation. Gears. So of course using gears. I should have just copied them from somewhere else, but whatever. That's fine. Where is that gear? Oh, it's tiny. tiny. Great. All right. So they had a very good like adherence to having the blue greens up here. Okay, so blue, no, that's actually green. This one is blue. So our familiar pattern. Yeah, so it was really nice to see, one service communicate with another using this approach where we say it's quite clear as to why things are coming in and going out of different services. And they had these named really well. So this might have been a payment processor. I don't know, I'm making it up. Probably doesn't make sense with what you guys named the processor. So, and the screens were actual captures from the web. So just leave it as white. So they had
analyze an existing system. That's the best way to go, right?
Well, the existing system, yeah, it was really, really nice. And I think the thing that I really love about application of event modeling, even to traditional systems, they didn't bother necessarily having each record represented. You can certainly break out these subsystems to show records being changed in the database, but they just left it at the event, identifying events, which was already 90% of the value because they were able to communicate so much about what the system did that the other details, while they're needed for certain to be successful at certain things and a deeper understanding to fix bugs and to extend the system, from just understanding the system to be able to talk to whoever about what issues were and use it as a map. Yeah, 90% there. It was really nice. So like I said, for me, looking at a proper diagram like this. Oh, the other thing that they had is, this is really cool. They naturally organized everything like we were supposed to for different workflows. So they had, maybe sign up or whatever it was. I don't actually remember what it is, so I'm not spoiling any NDAs or other things here, but they did have a proper way of saying, like, okay, we'll just label this part here. This is what we're doing. This is not like a different alternate workflow. It's still the same workflow, but they had followed the advice of labeling parts of the workflow to be kind of your super epics if you want to draw, user story mapping, or giant epics in Jira or something. That's what got replaced here, which is really nice. So they would have a label at the top here that would say registration, maybe in this case, and something else over here, such as I guess carpool sign up or carpool, yes. What would it be?
Onboarding.
I don't know about onboarding, but like when you say that, hey, I live in this area, who else wants to carpool with me?
Yeah, kind of you can just
carpool organization. No, there's the workflow for, you start at a company and you're trying to find who to carpool with. So what would you call that process of discovery? Let's call it discovery, location discovery, or location publishing, maybe, because you're publishing where you live, right? You're publishing where you live, and that could be part of it, and then something else on this side that could be, I guess, gas money.
Put scheduling.
Scheduling would be another one, yeah. Okay, so let's put scheduling, sure. That's another one.
Location publishing, we could put that like
scheduling, sure. Scheduling, that's a good one.
Basically finding
yeah, finding the right people on what days you're gonna go and all that. Agreed. So yeah, this is kind of fun. And then what happens next is somewhere along here we would have all the details of the actual gas money things, right? Because some people might be unfairly saving a lot more gas than others. Like if one person's at the outskirts, so there would be gas money rebalancing. So yeah, we could see that using our carpooling system would go through these main sort of workflows, and we could dive into, what systems are done. So this was kind of this was the format that they had. I just want to make a few copies of this because just to give you a bird's eye view of what that beautiful sort of clean architecture workflow elaboration worked like. You just duplicate these a few times. Whoa, why did that zoom out? Sometimes my computer here is doing funny things with my keyboard, but anyway, yeah, if you can imagine this, they might have had even more services. So the interesting observation is when you have a legacy system that's been added, to over 20 years, you're going to have a ton of swim lanes where you may have introduced a service you're going to use for one particular small function, but it really adds up to like this vertical piece, and now it starts to make sense why you would want to keep the commands and the read models up here, because it would be very, very scattered if you had that. So I think our convention of having the event anchor where the command handler, if applicable, lives, or where the logic lives for this, is good. So really this serves as a map as to how we're coordinating any number of services throughout the life cycle of going through our workflows in the company. Now obviously that was their first iteration, so they didn't get to anywhere near what is considered information completeness for properties, etc. And the funny thing is that you can naturally arrive with that. So I noticed there's some comments that people put in, I think on one of the events in a particular service, where someone commented, it's like, I'm not sure if I have this information, because they were looking at a screen here, or I don't know where that information comes from. So it was really cool to see that people were already getting the natural push to start to fill out the example data and the actual properties in all of these boxes, so that you'd get the next level of value from this, which is the coupling of where is my data coming from, where is it going, what shape is it in, start to really make the event model talk a lot more about the system for any kind of inquiries that people may have. So this was kind of bird's eye view of what it looked like, and I'm wondering why these are. There we go. Maybe your screens don't cut off the last letter, but mine are. I don't know why. I'll just make them bigger. Okay, driver, rider. Okay, cool. So yeah, then of course, I'm not sure if they got into multiple people up at the top yet, but even this alone was quite good. The next step obviously would be to move these up and start to add the other people that we're going to be using the system. Whether you use personas or whatever it is, then yeah, that would be here. So yeah, anyone else have anyone else applied event modeling to legacy systems? It's going to happen more often. I think it's quite common. I've been fortunate enough that that a lot of the projects that we have are brand new projects, which is like, oh yeah, this doesn't work because you're never sitting there trying to extend a legacy system. But it seems to work quite well, and there'll be more and more of these projects.
I find the challenge with applying event modeling to legacy systems is, it's kind of, it relates to getting the right people in the room, but it also relates to the mindset of why you're doing it, right? So if you come in with, we are going to take our legacy system and rewrite it as microservices, right? And you come in with that really kind of mindset kind of point of view, right? You can get very blocked on the technical details, not the workflow details, right?
You can.
Yeah, and you might want to, there's a tendency to not bring in the business people that understand the workflow, because you can bring in the technical people that understand the architecture. And so as you start event modeling, and this is just one of the things that they actually find that they don't understand the workflow of the legacy system, right?
Yeah. I was actually surprised with these folks that they didn't get blocked on these things, like you said, that it would be, a technical thing. They had, I think the secret for their success was that they took the advice of having a variety of folks. And those folks also were engaged, like they wanted to make this work for them. And so they had, there was no people that were just there because there was a fun thing to go to, but everyone was engaged and really wanted to pursue an understanding of what's going on. So I was quite surprised that it didn't get hung up, because I find that too, Rick, that a lot of times people do get hung up on a lot of the details. And I think after many of these sessions that we've had, we keep drumming that message of make sure you have a cross section. An event model is supposed to be something that's used to make those bridges between everyone else. And it's really nice to see when people take that advice and they don't just say this is for architects or programmers to play with, that they get this really amazing benefit of keeping the conversation at the level that people understand the information flow, without saying that well, we need to make sure that this shows that we're using Kafka here from this moving to this. And so it was really nice to see that people didn't get at all stuck in the how, and really understood what was happening. And that is the beauty of this, is that they understood what was happening. And I'm still to this day, I don't think I found any other company that made such a clean, easy to understand event model after just one session of a workshop. So I'm just surprised, really. Maybe they did a lot of kind of reading beforehand to prep, and sometimes that's just kind of handed out. Here's the meeting next week, and it's kind of added in the description of the meeting, but few people actually go through and click and read the suggested material, which obviously would just be the blog post in my case here. So I think maybe a lot of them did that, and because they're trying to take advantage of the fact that everyone's engaged, they don't want to have to unnecessarily bloat and hire too many people if they can fix their system, and not that it's broken, but maybe improve it to be more event driven and find a path of migrating to a nicer architecture than they would. They had that buy-in for everyone to be really engaged. But I share your experience that a lot of times especially when this is discovered by the technical side, it kind of can tend to stay in the technical circles, and then the technical circles will have their technical bias and objectives leak into it, and that will derail the overall discussion of what the workflows provide in terms of the higher level thinking.
Yeah, and that's kind of where my experience is if they either on purpose or accidentally cast it as a technical architecture kind of thing, right? Like we're doing event modeling, then even you imagine you're inviting the key business people and the actual domain experts of those areas, right? They would look at the meeting and they would look at what you're trying to accomplish and say, oh, what you want us to come and participate in your redesign of microservice architecture?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? I've got work to do.
Yeah, yeah. That's your problem.
I can't. No, basically they would self-assess that. I really can't add value there.
Right.
And I know this other thing that I can do, I can add high value. So you've basically told them you don't belong. We're not going to talk about stuff in your casting of this as a technical architecture thing. And even though you invite them and try and encourage them to come,
Yeah.
they're under pressure to add value. And it's like, hey, I can go add value in this other
Yeah.
meeting. So I'll just catch up on the meeting notes and I'll keep up with what you're doing. But it's no use me sitting there for 2 to 3 hours to watch it happen because I have no input.
Well, it'd be really cool to see, examples of, real life examples from others that are doing this, and if they actually find similar, similar findings. So John did chime in that he'll be doing that. Yeah, it was really. It was quite rewarding to see that, and maybe we didn't have a clear enough message last year or the year before when we really started talking about event modeling as to the importance of what happens in the workshop, really understanding where and which parts are helpful to which objectives and types of projects. Currently we're doing this with yet another client, but kicking off a security audit using an event model to really help. So we're going to have some really good statistics on just how much easier your security side is going to be in terms of all of the OWASP and pen testing and whatever else that happens in a security audit. Will how much faster those things will go. Not only that, but maybe how far you can take the security audits, because again, it's you can't be 100% accurate in those security audits. It's really as far as is reasonably responsible to mitigate as much risk as possible. But that boundary, I think, can be pushed even further if you have a really good understanding of where things are, and the people that are doing your security audit can get to work a lot faster, and that discovery phase that they have to do with your organization ends up being incredibly short. And so then the majority of their engagement is not doing these discovery meetings, and then the other half is them actually running the proper tests against those parts of the systems that were identified through the discovery meeting. Instead, now you might have only 10% of the time spent on discovery, and the 90% of the time actually doing the work. And maybe during that 90%, they're just quickly asking a question on email or on Slack or whatever they're using to get some more interactive kind of questions that are not blanket discovery, but are really digging to a better level. So I think it's really important, and I can't wait to share those findings. So 2 very exciting projects. This one that did this legacy system, and now we have a more or less new system that's going to have the security audit. So lots of interesting findings, just to have some metrics around the benefits of having a design. I think it's easy to say that design is really what we're experimenting with here. It doesn't necessarily have to be event modeling, but I think we can show even this versus UML that we have more engagement with this, because it's not, like you said, Rick, just technical, that we have a more holistic understanding of what's going on, and therefore there's way more people that can help with something like a security audit from different perspectives. Maybe there's someone that saw, let's pretend that there's an accounting person that understands the system as well. They might actually be able to tell the security audit folks that there was these patterns that they saw with the type of transactions that happened, and therefore maybe they should look at the payment part of the system specifically and how it was used in those scenarios. So
yeah, I think
really good.
I think that's there's like every model is wrong because it's because it doesn't model the full world, right? But some are useful. And the question in this case was from security, whatever, by focusing on the information flow and the information architecture, that's the hardest thing to reverse engineer. Like technical architecture security is like, have your systems been patched and all that kind of stuff. a lot of that can be done by scans or attacks, like a robot, like
Yeah, it's very superficial. There's tons of people selling
right.
products around that. Your
You don't
security should be like just something you plug into your AWS thing, right? And
you
it'll
don't need
find it.
to understand the information flow. The harder thing is it's the information security that you're basically having people's information
Hmm.
and have you protected. Has the information that's supposed to be stored in this system, does it leak into that system? And when
Hmm.
you see that information flow, you can see that, hey, wait a minute, this these commands and events have attributes that actually don't belong in that system for security reasons.
Hmm.
Oh, I mean, that stands out by just reading the attributes stored in the event. So wait a minute, why does that system store like my email? Wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a leak, right?
Well, especially when you
Well,
start to arrange. So, part of this topic is organizing your event model. And so, depending on your type of organization, some of these swim lanes may actually be representing services where you're in a DMZ and all this other stuff, right? Different network topology. So maybe the bottom three lanes are actually representative of something that is not in a highly trusted area of the network, and what scrutiny has been, who's been authenticated to be there. And that's quite important with public facing websites and all that. And then you can identify the swim lanes, that have the more secure layers, and then you can certify that, yeah, that's okay for my email to sit in these events, because that's going to be, that's protected. But if I have something sitting here where it's on the more public facing side, and there could be, if there is a security breach, then those things are available to the hackers. So it's really nice
right.
to be able to show that flow of information in and out to these. You can call it a dangerous kind of area. And what I'm doing right now with some of the event models is exactly that, is kind of coloring them to have, these two, these swim lanes down here, maybe, a red color, but just make it highly opaque here, and then send to back so we can draw on it. And you can probably also just if you want to do this in Miro, you can just probably lock this as well so it doesn't get moved, and unlock. I'm just gonna zoom in just to make sure it lines up with these. But here, of course, you can also add some descriptions here. Oh, the other thing that they did, I gotta show you, that's kind of nice, because you get, with these really long swim lanes, you get lost as to what's going on as you move left to right. You don't want to be scrolling all the way to the left. So let me lock this again. And so what they did, so while I'm on the subject, sorry, I'm kind of going everywhere, but I got very little time today. So what they did is they just repeated the assignment of these swim lanes all the way throughout.
At every boundary.
At every boundary, like every now and then, so that you didn't have to scroll around just to find out where you are. And of course, as we get ONote and other proper tools for event modeling, we're going to have all this kind of stuff just, kind of always sit on the left-hand side, and the part that we're scrolling around on will allow, kind of like you freeze your top cells in Excel if you want to keep the headers in, right? Those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So
having these logical boundaries and repeating that, the line and the headers at the boundaries, makes sense. It's a good habit.
Yeah, it was really helpful to understand. They even put it
You
at the
can
very
take a
end.
snapshot of that and show that that this is basically especially, and I like what you said. What they did is they didn't just randomly pick. They essentially, there's a higher level business process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they put those, and this is what things, if you keep an eye on this when you're doing a big existing system,
Mm-hmm.
you can identify that there's this higher level business process that you can imagine that there's maybe an initiating event, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some logical end event like this. We want to know when this happens, but it may not be a direct event in your system, but like there's a set of rules that would let you know that really is a monitoring event, like like onboarding, right?
Mm-hmm.
registration, right?
Yeah, they added as well manual things, right? Because some of their system was manual, so it was nice for them to actually identify that too, by the way,
Yeah.
which is really good.
One example is registration, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
registration is complete when, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when either their email is when any of these conditions are met, we consider them registered, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so there's not necessarily an event in the system below, but logically you have this idea that there's kind of a rule, and you can actually start encoding that higher level thing in your process, and then you say, wait a minute, we could start monitoring how many people get through registration now as a business
Yeah.
because we realize what's the rules. But that's just kind of in your first pass. You say registration. It kind of ends when any of those things happen. So that's in this boundary. Okay, now they're registered. Now they're on to doing some other workflow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really that higher level workflow. I think people miss a lot mapping.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the value is what does it mean to complete registration? And you
Yeah.
talk about the rules, and you can start monitoring your system, the health of your system, how many people complete registration and how long does it take?
Yeah.
Well, that's a complicated business thing that's kind of fuzzy
Yeah.
and will change over time.
Yeah, we've also had like even internally, like maybe there's some other type of diagram that shows some concept better, but that's always weighed with the fact that people have to context switch to jump to some other diagram. And I know that on the event storming side, especially in the DDD community, there's always this propensity to move from user story mapping to an event storming level 2 or whatever they call it these days for like mapping aggregates to yet another. Maybe they'll throw in a Wardley map thing. So I think what we want,
mapping, they do.
yeah, there's a whole bunch of things now. So I think it's getting into like, I get it. It's kind of like they stepped back and said an event storming session is great, but now we're just going to pick the best tool for each of these tasks. But I think it's really important that it does increase the number of tools that need to be understood, and then that's an important thing to consider as you have turnover and just the amount of people that need to understand all those things.
Yeah.
So by having event modeling try to be quote unquote the silver bullet, it's really about having a common language across as many domains. So maybe some of these things are a little bit too clumsy to look at going all the way across and having a very wide workflow just to show some examples of how the system works. I think the benefit of that is that you really save on the amount of people it communicates to. And because it's still a story-like thing, I don't think it makes it harder to understand what's going on. It may be tedious, but a lot of things that are worthwhile are tedious to do. And if you're being fully, complete in the description, then it becomes useful. Like it's about the fact that you don't get work done for free. I mean, that's where I don't think event modeling is a silver bullet. Actually, it does tend to be tedious at times and ends up being more work, but I think it's really responsible work. And the fact that it's the same format across, we had that session about how it does Wardley map objectives as well. Specifically for when we're automating information systems. I think if you have higher level strategy talks, honestly, even Wardley maps are not that great.
I will put a caveat on this, like is for any model, and just it's what you need to put in the model is important, but often just as important and often more important is what you should leave out of the model.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's where the boundary, like, yes, you could do some event model version of strategy or whatever, but that's an entirely different diagram. You wouldn't just stick it into this, right?
No, exactly.
Rotation. And so that's a tools thing. And so what I'm saying
that's definitely a tools thing, because we could, with the right tools, do that, right?
Yeah. So here's the point. Like, and I think there's better tools than that for strategy, for most types of strategy, but for the kind of strategy that you modeled, then it was right. But there's other. Here's the issue is that those other models, if you look at them, they tend to be a model that a subset of that community needs to look at, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the technical architecture. When you say, how does the technical architecture map to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to stick the technical architecture onto this, because honestly, my CEO or my salespeople or whatever, or they don't need to understand that mapping, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to free, like I want the technical people to decide on the people what's the right tool for that discussion at the level they're having it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And there may be a better tool given what they're at, right?
Mm-hmm.
They may be doing a subset and saying, for this subset, here's how it maps, whatever they want to do, whatever way it communicates, as long as they can relate that back to this, so they can transition the conversation. How does it relate to this? And then how does that relate to that UI that you're talking about, right? So if you can keep this as the mapping, this maps to that, and that maps to over here to your strategic concern, people can follow and jump through those levels. So that's really what I highly recommend is, don't try and stick everything into this model. Have side models that map to this clearly well, to map to a section of it. How does this map to that?
Yeah.
And then this is your kind of information architecture. Where is that information going in and out of our system
Mm-hmm.
that is needed to support this thing, right?
Right.
Where is this information stored for this technical thing? Well, okay, great, we got all the storage issues. And when you look at security, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I might look and say, great, how these things are now stored on these types of servers, and I realize there's a highly sensitive stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then non-sensitive but highly exposed stuff, both on the same physical server.
Mm-hmm.
That sets a red flag for any security auditor going, wait a minute, now I have to make sure that thing doesn't get exposed and then attack this thing, which,
Mm-hmm.
because basically by accident, you've put the stuff exposed to the internet, which should never be directly exposed, right? It kind
Yeah.
of stands out. So those conversations are easy to have,
Yeah.
because you can say how it maps and say, wait a minute, if we just separated that stuff onto a separate server, we go up in our security rating.
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Exactly.
and our mitigation and our risks go down, right? Like, because they have two hops to get at our system and
Mm-hmm.
all these kind of things. And I'm not sticking like,
Yeah,
you
the
know
the other thing that you brought up right now is just that transparency from the perspective of security, but also there's a topology. So we're dealing with one company that's been dealing with one of our clients for a long time, and they're kind of asking, what is, how many services do we have to now support that, we're adding to the solution, and really, it's like we already said how many, and we actually needed very few. So we're not really extremist on microservices front. So we may actually say that our our hosting is kind of these different colors, these different pieces here, where we say that this is co-hosted. It has two logical separations for the data in it and the workflows that are supported, and domains, if you will, whatever language you use. But it is actually one physical box or server or set of nodes or whatever that you're going to manage. So that's important. If you're upgrading, you have to reboot and restart or add or remove nodes, then you need to know that it's affecting two logical pieces of your where your information gets coordinated. So that's kind of nice. So this ability to communicate about all these related topics, like, yeah, okay, you have a system that automates all this information flow, but what is it, how does it help me as a security expert? How does it help me as an engineer? How does it help me as a developer? How does it help me as a QA person? How does it help me as a project manager? These are really exciting things to always be discovering, as saying, yeah, we can get that information. There might be some tools that those professions and roles are more used to, but we're finding that more and more these are baby duck kind of things, like, oh, well, I'm used to looking at Jira only to understand what's going on and organize it because I'm familiar with the tool, I'm familiar with spreadsheets. So it takes a bit of mapping and getting used to a new format, But the benefit is that there's so many more people using that format, and so many more people that you don't need to over communicate with, and as long as everyone starts to understand what that is. And there is some housekeeping here, like one of our projects, we are finding that folks didn't exactly make a swim lane for an external service, so they kind of just named a read model that, hey, this came from this lookup for whatever value that we wanted, um, and um, and so we need to then say, oh, but there's no event in that system. It's okay. Just call it a snapshot event of your query result. So if this was, some external service, and it was a traditional architecture where I do an API call to get a exchange rate or something, in order for me to make the event model show that, I would say event query result attained. It shows which swim lane we're in, so we know which service we queried. But then we also knew how we used that information in the calling code, and where we're actually doing the rest of the stuff, which might actually be hosted here, which we do own.
And usually when you dig into that, when you dig into that, you say like, okay, so you're doing this, you're just querying it from an external service, right? And let's say you're doing this for price quotes, right? To give like. Now, yeah, it's like, okay, let's just treat it like an imaginary event. You did a query, you did a snapshot, and that's the query as of that time. The query results that you got. Imagine you had recorded that as an event, right? Now, do you have requirements in your system already that are working around the fact that you don't have that event, right? So there might be caching. Like if I have the answer in the last 10 minutes, I just want to use it, right? But there also might be auditing. They're writing this to some log because they want to actually audit, because why did I give the person that price, right? So now they're just like, okay, well, when somebody asks that, we actually surf our text logs, right? Like if you just had an event and this, like, what was the log, what was the price, the last query,
right,
at the time before that, right? Like you'd actually be able to just look it up, like you have,
we can make decisions, right? I mean, it's really nice to say, oh, for example, in one of our domains, some of the services that are being used for queries are not free. So,
right.
And what usually happens when you just throw developers at it, it's like, well, we just got to increase the budget for how many queries we have. Someone can say that, wait a second, why don't we cache some of these results, and why don't we hash the inputs so that we have a cache to, look up the results for some time to live, and, maybe pay, a quarter of the price or a tenth of the price for this expensive thing, especially when we're just testing and things like that. So,
but then that has impacts on when you try and audit. Why did we give them that price? It was wrong at that time. Oh, wait a minute. Because there's this thing in a system which we don't actually, it's the hidden's the fact that it actually just caches the query for like 15 minutes.
Yeah, but
right?
you can show that. I mean, if that's an important piece and it's got money, you can show over time that you're not hitting the other service, and there's a cache service here that's giving you, the cached result for, and you can show on the timeline this happens for 5 minutes, and then after 5 minutes the next query goes, oh, it actually goes all the way through. It doesn't get the cached value.
Right. So I think on the event model, you can show that's the information. Where does this information come from?
Yes.
It comes from the this cache process, and there's a little process there.
Yeah. And if it's not highly important in terms of business, then you ignore it. You just you don't bother showing it, right? There is some caching that we have to make the SLAs work, but they're not critical, and so we just don't bother showing them.
Or often, like you put the event, it comes from an external service. You just put that this comes from a service. It's an event, and then you actually put a little bubble note that says we cached. By the way, we cached this. Don't worry about the details, and that's good enough. Most people know. Okay, so it's there. It comes from an external service, but it's not necessarily real time. That's all I need to know, right?
Yep.
Little bubble note beside it. Little voice box or something. And people, they get it. It comes from an external service. We treat it like an event, but it's cached, right?
Yep.
And
well,
that's good enough.
So I'm gonna have to cut the meetup short this week because I have a ton of work that I'm in. So this week is going to be a short one. I just wanted to ask if anyone had other kind of questions about these latest discoveries of people using this for legacy systems and kind of not using a a row view of data. Before we sign off here, I think I'm going to sign off in 5 minutes. So if there's any particular questions someone has for me, now's your chance to ask. And I was looking on YouTube and no one's typing anything into the chat, so nothing's coming in from YouTube. But if you are watching and you want to ask, I want you to know that I do read or have in front of me the chat from YouTube as well. So
John, you got any ideas or questions you want to share since you're about to be doing some of this stuff soon?
Me?
No, John.
Oh, John. Oh, yeah, John. Well, John was typing some things.
Oh, he
He's
just
just
typed
listening.
something. Said nothing to add, but it's given him some new ideas to help.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, so his looking at some new things. Great. And
so I will encourage people like John, when they look at this and they come up and then they go do it and they come back and say, you know what, I have some other ideas. Bring those ideas back to previous meetup and say, remember, and just mention at the beginning of the thing, hey, I'd like to make some suggestions this time or next time. Like, bring your voices back, in your experiences back. Yeah, that was nice, but I found some extra add-on tips, or actually had some challenges here that I want to bring back to the community. That's really, there's a lot of value from real examples from real people, who have different perspectives.
And we had people from the different workshops join the Slack channel for event modeling, where they asked further questions too. So that's been really helpful. The community's really stepped up too. I'm really happy about. Oh, I forgot to add a couple of folks to be admins on there, because we had some spammers in there trying to advertise something. So, and I can't be awake 24/7 to monitor it. So, I think Einar and a couple of other people have volunteered to be admins. So a bit of housekeeping there. Yeah, thanks. You can delete those spams when they do pop up. It's not too often that they pop up. Maybe 2 or 3 times every 4 months or so I've seen. So not a big problem, but I just don't want it to sit there for any extended amount of time if it doesn't have to. And yeah. So. And
I know the other thing, just related to, because I know Adam's got to go, but while he's here, so I just want to relate it to what I was saying about people have ideas. I know a lot of people are kind of like, they're hesitant to sidetrack today's discussion topic for the thing they're thinking about. So reach out offline to, just basically whoever's talkative in the community and say, hey, you can reach out to Adam. He's always available, but if he's busy, you can reach out to any of the other people that you might know that are normally online. Say, hey, do you think we should talk about this? And then, advocates, yeah. And then
we'll bring that absolutely. Yeah, if you have good
whatever
point,
you're
Rick.
comfortable with. If you're feeling like, I don't know if it's a good idea, what do you think? Reach out to whoever you're comfortable with and brainstorm that, and then bring it. Yeah. That's really what I'm saying. We're really open to that. I know we don't say it. And I know
so there's a couple of ways to do that. We can do that in the event modeling Slack group. We can also do that on a comment. If you're watching the YouTube video, I'll obviously read those comments. You can also, if you find me on Twitter, you can direct message me if you want it to be private to suggest, or you can publicly reply to any on-topic tweet with a topic that you want to cover. Sure, that would be a good way to do that as well.
I've DM'd Adam before in the past. I say I have this thing I was thinking about talking about, and back and forth a little bit, and then he brought it up in a later one. So if you're kind of shy about even posting it in the open DM channel, just pick somebody, DM them, and then move it to the kind of open channel and say, hey, what does everybody think, right?
Yeah. Lots of ways to get a hold of any of us, really, but I do monitor quite a lot of these. So even on the Meetup comment, the YouTube comments, direct messages to me, mentions in Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. So really any of those channels, and there's probably a few I'm forgetting, you can contact me on, and I'd be more than happy to talk about topics that maybe are important to you and would be very helpful for others as well to have explained on the Meetup. So, and of course, we're slowly opening up the offices here. We were down to 150 cases in British Columbia here, so per capita, that's pretty low. I think there's 5 million people in British Columbia, so we're moving on to phase 2 of removing the restrictions, and that means we're going to start to have some in-person meetups. So I'm looking really forward to that, and I think by September, from what people project, we'll be back to full regular online meetups. So I'm excited to see people in person again and have those really fun conversations in our kitchen afterward. I'm going to try and keep them in the middle of the day because even though they'll be in person, I think we've made quite an amazing global community where people are joining from all over the place, and I don't want to lose that. So we're going to keep it global. Just some of them are going to be, people actually brought in like guest speakers that are physically together in the same space as me and presenting. So I hope that happens soon. Definitely by September, but even sooner. I think as long as we abide by the less than 50 people in the same room and all that kind of stuff, we're good to go. So I'm excited. I will be getting my second vaccination shot hopefully within the next month here, and then we're good to go. So on that note, I'm going to have some demo stuff to do for a client, or at least watch the folks do their demos, which is really fun. It's really fun to demo these types of systems because it's easy to carve out the piece you worked on without having to line up everything. So this is going to be a fun one. The guys did a lot of work over the last week or so, and so I'm excited to see it all working together. So back to work for me. For those in Europe, obviously you're going to be enjoying the rest of your weekend. I still got the rest of the day to get through here, as does Rick. So yep. Thanks everyone, and I'm gonna stop sharing now, and
thanks everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Cheers.
And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Good to see you, John. Bye.